Okay, 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 okay. Okay, 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 okay. All right, all right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and good night, wherever you happen to be, ladies and gentlemen. It's lovely to be here. It's exactly 17 minutes on the top of the hour here in the United Kingdom. I think it's, I think it must be 12 p.m. or 4 p.m. where you are, James. What's the situation?
It is 11 a.m.
It's 11 a.m. Good morning, James. How are you?
Good, good
The
morning, Muzukulu wa Muswangali.
Muzu-
That's a long
Muzu-
name.
Muzukulu wa Mswagari. Exactly, James. I think for 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 brevity, you can just call me Julius. That would do for today.
That's an interesting one. It's a mouthful. It's a good
I,
one.
I will explain where that comes from. But before we hit the ground, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the State of the Nation. The State of the Nation, of course, it's been running here for some time now. Ebifa Mugwanga, proudly sponsored by the University of Toronto and partner affinity associations, of course, in Paramount, in conjunction with Paramount Education. You can feel free to comment, share, tag a friend. You can also be following these conversations. We are live on YouTube, on Twitter, and all the other open spaces. Before I go very far, I wish to do the housekeeping. The housekeeping is that I wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto African Alumni Association operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron Wendat, the Seneca, and the Misosugas of credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many indigenous people from across the Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. So that's to recognize those who have made it possible, for these kind of programs to be taking place, across the globe and where we are. These platforms, set aside to encourage and facilitate, these kind of conversations. In the studio today, it's myself, Julius Mitala. I'm a mental health lawyer. I prefer to go by the name Mitala Muzukuruwa Mswangali. I'm joined by a great discussant, Dr. James William Mangeni, and I'll give him the opportunity to introduce himself as we wait for another gallant doctor, Dr. Joel. And I hope he will be joining us very shortly. But welcome to the show. You always feel free, please, to let us make this a lively conversation as we would normally make the conversations to be. So, James, the floor is yours. Tell me about yourself. How are you, sir?
Um, I wanted to use what Sally normally uses. So I forgot it. He normally says it's terrible or whatever. I don't know what he says. Sally, who
Terrific.
used terrific.
Terrific.
Yes. Well, I'm good. I'm fine. It's a lovely morning. It is sunny, although we are moving towards winter or fall, as you call it. Yes, I'm James William Mugeni. Uh, I don't know Mutabaniwa. I don't know. I don't have that, but
you
I'm from Bukedi. I'm
you are
from
forgiven.
Bus.
You are forgiven for not being able to do the recitations.
I like that because I witnessed it sometime when you were told tambula ng'omuganda, but now sisobola nakutambula ng'omusamya. But I'm from Busia, but originally from Bukedi. Before we got those small divisions of tribal districts, I was from Bukedi. Remember, Bukedi was the only district in Uganda that had, you were Buganda, you were Toro, Bunyoro, Teso, actually, but Bukedi was us. We're the
Yeah.
United States. We're the United States of of Uganda, of Africa. But I'm a medical clinic officer by profession, and currently living in the United States. That's what I must say.
well,
But
well,
I lived in Uganda long enough, and I appreciated the chaos of Uganda. And I have been telling friends this morning that I got a visa because I was speaking about chaos in my district, because I'm like, we are home of no. Muswan, let me put it this clearly so that you can hear.
Absolutely.
If you see, if you see any house in Uganda, think about Tororo Cement. If you
Uh-huh.
see if you see any road in Uganda, think about Tororo Cement. If you see all dams, including the Owen Falls Dam, think about Tororo Cement. But when it comes to poverty, no. No, when it comes to poverty, it's not Tororo Cement. When it comes to poverty, it is us from Tororo,
Tororo.
the second poorest after Karamoja. And so that's why I'm like, I'm one of those people who signed the petition on Stop the Oil,
Mhm.
because oil is supposed to liberate me. I'm not here for fun. I'm supposed to be in Uganda, but Uganda was hard. And I was speaking vehemently. I was speaking passionately about cement in Tororo. Ever since I left Tororo, ever since for schooling, then I came back. I'm like, but this poverty cannot be explained. You cannot have cement and you have mud and water. Grass. I ended up telling people that I think just because we are in grass thatched, we are in mud and water because we have grass thatched mud and water brains.
Absolutely. You know,
In home, yes, yes, yes.
when I was growing up, and I think this would be the case with so many other people. This name Toro Cement would be very synonymous with everybody who has been around Uganda.
It was called it. Yes, it was called
time
Uganda Cement. Uganda
Uganda
Cement.
Cement,
Then,
Uganda Cement.
yes.
Yeah, times have changed so much. I think it's quite possible that people who are born possibly 1990, they may not be able to understand that sometimes there were things that were, national landmarks, for the country called Uganda, because those sorts of things have kind of stopped to exist. But it's nice to
Absolutely.
hear that. It's nice to hear that lovely background from you. The
Yes.
business of our discussion today is obviously something that has caught the nation. I think a lot of ink and pen has been dedicated to this subject. We were supposed to be here, ladies and gentlemen, last week, but due to a technical glitch, which I personally apologize for, we are not able to go live. And I struggled a bit to bring the program live, but I was in the end, I wasn't able to do it, so we had to abort. And so that's why we are back here. So the topic of our discussion today is this issue that concerns the Computer Misuse Bill. I would like to refer to it as the Nsereko Bill. Just a very little background to this. Mr. Muhammad, Honorable Muhammad Nsereko, brought a bill in Parliament seeking to make amendments to the primary law, which is the Computer Misuse Act of 2011. And that bill, that piece of legislation, has created a lot of concern and controversy, across the domain, from academia, social media activists, and all concerned Ugandans, to be honest, because the significance of this bill is quite important. Although the topic of this discussion seems to be set around looking at this piece of legislation from a clinical background, but I think we would rather have a broader look, a much broader look, looking at what are the actual possible implications. Let us look at the journey of this bill through Parliament. What does it mean to a typical Ugandan like yourself, like myself? Because that's really the most important thing. Um, there's been a lot of technology developments. Mr. Nsereko's bill is generally premised on the need to enhance the enjoyment of the right to privacy, which are being badly affected by online activity on social media platforms through unauthorized access to people's information, the sharing of information very globally and very widely, unsolicited, malicious, hateful, and unwarranted information, and to address new emerging threats to the employment rights, you know, uh, in accordance with the Computer Misuse Act of 2011. But this bill is controversial, and there's a number of provisions which we shall go into as we proceed into the discussion. But what's your take on this particular matter?
Since you said we should, I want to discuss this bill as a consumer. I don't want to discuss it. The technical aspects of it is for the lawyers. And suffice to say, lawyers are supposed to legislate and pass bills or laws that benefit us. I want to tell you point blank that after that bill was signed, after that law was passed, I'm sure you people have brought, or somebody decided to bring me to this talk show simply because you listened to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, the state where I am, after COVID-19, the whole world, like I said, the whole world is flat. And the state where I am, I'm speaking with evidence, gave out free laptops. I'm now using this, and I have a laptop I'm talking from.
Absolutely.
And I went and picked a laptop. I went and picked laptop and mobilized a few Ugandans that they are free laptops. Let's go. And let me tell you something interesting before I can even continue. My colleagues from Uganda are telling me now was that I end up monitoring. I've lost you. I don't know whether I'm not
No,
here.
no, no. I can hear you very well, James. Go on. Yeah.
Yes. When I told my colleagues to get to phone laptops, I got and they got. And they started saying, well, that I end monitoring.
Because of getting the laptops.
No, there's that fear. There's that fear within an enacted fear that we come with from Uganda. Mm-hmm. Here we are in a country where we're told, welcome to the land of the brave, mm-hmm. Welcome to the land of the courageous, welcome to the land of the free. But when you come from Uganda like me, you're carrying that fear. Now you are here, you are called to pick a laptop, and the Ugandan is telling you think they're not going to monitor us. And then I even got a colleague who told me, I'm fearing to use it because when you log on, it's like, I said, but you man, we are already naked. In America, let me tell you point blank, everywhere you are stepping on a camera.
Absolutely.
Everywhere you are walking, you are driving out, you are driving on a camera. Then I'm like, yes, if you are somebody who is free, courageous, then sometimes you need to just pick the laptop and express yourself and be yourself. And this is what these guys want to see from us. But that said, I am trying to discuss this in relationship to Nsereko. That week, Nsereko was in America. Mm-hmm. And Nsereko was here. And they came with Nankabiro and the team. We had what we call UNA. I remember I was a former member of UNA. I was representing this region. So the Nserekos come here, and the stall for Uganda, where they give them a stall to display information about Uganda, I think we all know, we all saw, they had t-shirts for Muhoozi, they had t-shirts for Museveni. Now, you have come to a land where perhaps you should discuss, where are these people giving laptops? This is this state teaming up with the Google. This state teamed up with the Google. And after teaming up with the Google, they have put mentors almost for every section. If you're a health worker like me, you will log on and you have Google free courses that are offered by the state, and you have somebody from the state mentoring you in training. If I say I'm a health worker, I'm interested in public health, they will come in there and they try to help you. They say study courses, show us your certificates, so that we see. It's under workforce development. So just that is an example to give you that. Look at how the developed world thinks. For us at home, you expect our best, a legislature, mm-hmm. at most, our best, to be thinking of, first and foremost, how do we move? How do we open up? You remember They put a shadow on Facebook.
It is
And
still
you know
up.
how,
It's still operating.
yes,
That shed is still operating. As far as I understand, that thing is still operating. Yeah.
yes, they put a shadow on Facebook. Now you're like, you expect as a legislature, he should be now fighting to see that the law of putting a shadow on Facebook is removed. You should expect that your legislature should be fighting right now to see that every Uganda has a computer. Why do you control what you don't have yet?
I get your
Why
questions.
do you? Yes.
I've given you, I've listened in and I've given you this time because I wanted you to make that preamble and make it very clear. I want to touch on the specifics of this law, and I think these are the provisions that have been proposed to prohibit the sharing of any information relating to a child without authorization from a parent or guardian or any other person having authority to make such decisions, prohibit the sending or sharing of information that promotes hatred, provide for the prohibition of sending and sharing of misleading, malicious, and unsolicited information, and restrict convicted or any other offenders under the Computer Misuse Act 2011 from holding public office. Now, those are the provisions. And I think for me, the issue here, which is really, really very important for me, and I can understand, all these other issues around, privacy and so on and so forth. But I think the way this law has been designed is a little bit too broad. And number one, it's not necessary. Number one, it's not necessary. Why is it not necessary? Because as it has been, argued by so many, people who are concerned about this piece of legislation, there is enough laws in our land to be able to address most of the mischief that Mr. Nsereko tries to capture. That is number one. Secondly, I think his law is not brought in good faith. And I would say why I think his law is not premised on good faith. During the pandemic or just before the pandemic, Mr. Nsereko became very, very outspoken. And I think he used to have, these Facebook publications. He used to have these Facebook lives, as they have so become. And he became popular. I think at one point he was being viewed by almost about 1,000, people tuned in to follow what he was saying on Facebook, which is fair enough because actually that's the purpose. That's the whole purpose. Social media, Facebook, Twitter, all these, virtual online spaces, they are meant there to do that job. That's the job, to connect us, the connectivity aspect of it, to bring information, to cut across, to cut away the intergenerational, challenges, I don't know how old you are, James, but I'm pretty sure that you are older than me. I mean, we wouldn't normally be having these sorts of conversations. The only reason we're having these conversations is because of that barrier that has been, teared apart by the arrival of social media. So social media has got it's got a good value to serve, But back to Mr. Nsereko, I think he got into something that he possibly was not very familiar with. And he ended up becoming angry because of the reactions that possibly he had received from follow-up from his live conversations that he was having with the general public. And I think based on that anger, based on the feedback that he was possibly receiving, from the public during the course of his live shows, he's thought about a law that is, to say the least, just draconian. I've been reading an article today by one of my most loved monitor scribes. This is by what's his name, Timothy Kadyegira. He makes some very good points. I mean, anybody can go to Timothy Kadyegira's page today on the monitor, and you see the argument he's making that, is it not about time that, we should possibly act a little bit more truthfully when we are, especially people in the public domain, they should be a little bit more truthfully in the way they relate with members of the public, because this whole circus about people becoming so much concerned with privacy while they are occupying public office is just down to one thing, that people are not open and transparent. If you're open and transparent, there is nothing to fear. What are you scared of? I mean, if somebody declares you dead today while in the actual sense you are alive, what offense is that? Of what offense is that really? And I think these are some of the arguments that Timothy Kajigira is making in his argument. So, is there really an offense in Mitala Muzukuru wa Mswangari being announced dead, or James Mogeni being announced dead, or XYZ being announced dead? Is there an offense in that? Should that be something that should become criminal by law?
Let me answer. I want to answer you before you've made several things but I want to answer the first one first. You asked me how old I am, and I want to talk about my age in relationship to moving to America. I moved to America when I was 51 years old. I'm now 58. But I'm mentioning that for one reason, because my age has more of turned out as a disability. I came from a profession. I'm a medical clinic officer by profession. I told you that.
Yeah.
And up to the level that I almost left Uganda, I had never been exposed to computers. I had never been exposed to computers. My clinical work, the clerical work, was done by taking notes, history taking by writing notes. Then I moved to America, where everything is online. If you want direction, it's online. If you want to buy food, it's online. If you want education, it's online. Muzukulu. I call you Muzukulu.
I'm happy with that.
I became a man with disabilities in America. And I'm telling you that for a fact. The hospital where I work, the hospital where I am, has 4,000 desktops. 4,000 desktops. Think of a James who has come from Tororo. I'm talking about Tororo, where poverty resides. And you enter in a network of 4,000 computers. Up to this day, I even don't know where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And such a show is helping me. Up to this day, I don't know where I am. Because think about being bombarded. Not all the 4,000 computers, desktops will communicate, but over 1,000 people will communicate. And sorting out relevant information is an issue. And here is it. When I came here, I'm a man who used to walk to work on foot. And then you come here and they tell you to survive here, you need English. These are the skills they told me, that the state told me. You need English, you need IT, you need driving. Muzukul, I can't drive on what you call the highways.
The highways.
When I go there, the roads are rotating. Now the computers are torturing me, the roads are torturing me. I take the longest routes to reach anywhere, and I take the longest routes to reach any information on computer.
So do you then think that, James,
Yes.
on account of that insight, do you think that these sorts of measures that we are taking at a legislative level, what kind of disservice or disadvantage are they likely to do to the local Ugandan, who is actually likely to be the recipient of this?
Muzukul, I'm still coming.
Mm-hmm.
And then I joined school. I did what you call certified public management. And then COVID strikes. COVID strikes and finds James a disabled man in America. And that's what it means, because Uganda was disabled itself. Uganda was disabled because of COVID-19. Now, on a quick one, 26 years ago, there was a student called Galogeto Stephen, dismissed from Makerere because he led a students' protest against cost sharing. Now, as a student here, Using the motto of the university where I was, the university talks of igniting dreams.
Mhm.
I talked to the professor of this university about Galogito Stephen, who was my OB in O level. And there's a student from Uganda. I have his story, and I would like to enroll him for this course. The university accepts Galogito to do that course. Trust me, amongst the hindrances that Galogito, if he can come online, amongst the hindrances that he has managed to go through, the problems he has gone through is failing to have data to study. Meanwhile, COVID locked the world went online, and the world is online. You expect anybody at legislative level to try to make sure we go online. Online, we have libraries. Online, we have universities. Online, we have hospitals. Right now, the hospital where I am even has a virtual nursing, virtual medicine.
Mhm.
So we are talking about a member of parliament who should be above us. We are talking about a member of parliament who comes to America and visits us and is trying to lock up his own country. On a similar note, remember we are at war. I don't want you to rule out that we are at war in Uganda. You have dominated the young people using guns, and social media is the only weapon they have.
Absolutely.
Social
You touch
media is the only yes.
you touch about that because this morning I got up early this morning and I was looking at some of the places where I pick information from, and I think I'm one of those who are likely to be disadvantaged if the Nsereko Draconian Bill becomes law, because it will bar us from sharing information. I'll come back to that in a bit. But talking about this war, in the World War, the First World War, there were guns. I don't know what range they were. I've got no military background, so I'm unable really to describe what sort of gun range, gun power was there during the World War. And then we came to the Second War, and in the Second War we had, these Kajegere guns. The one we saw in the 1980s after Museveni's war. You saw people carrying guns with, the machine guns. That became very popular. I remember as a young boy, we used to mimic those games using, these yam kind of yam stems and trying to create guns from that and pretending to be going to war in the jungles. But then move fast forward, we are in this generation of technology. We are undergoing a technology. All what you need now to be at war is you need a camera, you need a telephone, and you need an internet connection. That's all you need. And in reference to your friend Gary Giffel you've talked about, I did actually read his story, and I think it was a very compelling story. A very prominent young man, guild presidency back in the days, medical student, flying. I think by the time he was expelled from university, he was at his
Fifth year
fifth year of medical school.
fifth year student, yes.
From what I understand, that together with his cohorts, the group of other students with whom he was expelled, they were required to write an apology, and he refused to write an apology because he believed in what he was standing for, and because of that, he remained behind. The world shut him out. But the story of Garigito has been picked up courtesy of this sharing of information. Because had his story not been shared and reached out, to the general public, to people like you, to be able to reach back to a friend and colleague that you knew, possibly his situation would be, completely different from what we are talking about
Actually,
today. But
the story was when Makerere got burnt, I picked the burning towers of Makerere and posted on my social media page, Facebook, and I wrote this way, that as Makerere burns, some of us, I was never in Makerere. I said, some of us remember a student who was dismissed long time ago. I remember that student called Galogito Stephen. Where is he? I made that post on Facebook. And people started searching for him, and he responded that I'm here. I said, what are you doing today? What are you doing nowadays? That's how it's picked up. But that said, the other point I was trying to emphasize that we are at war, and this war is young people trying to come up in terms with the fast moving world, and you have an age. Muzukulu, in this state where I am, a student who was not born, who was born, the student, the university takes students who are born in 2000. After that, they don't take you. That's how hard things are here. They have an age they call always on. Their memory, their thinking is the computer, is the phone. That's what they use for thinking. So if you are not at that rate, if you're not running at that, because we're having a situation where we have old school. I told you I'm 50 years, 58 today, and failing to cope up with the technology. And yet my country, where I come from, is even still fighting technology. And that's the fear. That's what we are seeing. But that said, I want to give you practical examples. If you go and follow, there's a young man, I don't know whether he's a young man called Lumbuye Fred or whatever. You just see his shows. When the guy logs on, the young people call him a teacher. And then you look at the followers in thousands, and that tells you how hungry young people are for information. Now, the Nsereko to me, I normally post every morning on my social media that my state here, I first follow my governor every morning and see what my governor has posted. But you're in Uganda, where a member of parliament doesn't have a Twitter account, a member of parliament doesn't have a Facebook account, a member of parliament is not even on WhatsApp. And that is the kind of group we are talking about, using their fear to block young people. They are using their fear. If you got any member of parliament, in fact, I can even tell you, I can swear, I can bet that I can give you, I can buy a bottle of wine if you went on Facebook and picked anything that is posted by a member of parliament from Uganda. Zero. Go to Facebook and Google and search on Facebook and search my governor, Governor Reynolds, and see what she has posted every day.
You see, those are the goods of social media that we seem to be missing out, and I think it's really a shame. Again, that in the criticism that has been posted by some of the people, some of the groups that were consulted during the debate on this computer misuse bill, there were quite a number of organizations, to my disappointment, and I think it's really a huge disappointment that a law of such consequence that has got the consequence of affecting millions of Ugandans is debated and passed in parliament with such a rush and without proper consideration being given to a wide number of important issues. The other criticism I have against that is that we have not really seen the various reports, and we haven't really seen the debate. We've seen snippets. I've seen Mr. Nsereko being very articulate and very eloquent. He is very eloquent, and he's very animated when he speaks. I tend to see him a few times in a few areas speaking, either on TV or in one of these public spaces where he addresses the nation. But when it comes to this bill, there is this rush. One wonders that, where is this rush coming from? A law of such consequence that is likely to affect, millions of Ugandans. Why is it being passed with such a rush? A mere 15 or 13 consultations took place, and in record time. Much of those debates have been kept out of the public domain. I think the only kind of debate that I've seen has been from an organization. I can't remember what the organization is, but there was an organization which was one of the organizations that were consulted, which has posted, a critique of the entire arrangement, the way it was done, and it's really worrying. But let's look on this, because the sharing of information seems to be the gist of this. Now we know that we already have the Computer Misuse Act of 2011. By way of background, I think people, possibly the followers, will need to understand, what is this Computer Misuse Bill or Computer Misuse Act? Really? What is that law? What is the genesis? Where does it come from? As the internet began to open up and people began to access information very widely during this internet, the age of the internet revolution, I think there was a need to counter, the mischief that comes alongside those kind of developments. Things like internet fraud, identity fraud, banking fraud, hackers hacking into organizations, databases and taking organizations out of service completely. Sometimes governments, databases have been hacked into, information that is very sensitive to the security of the nation, security of the government has been hacked and been shared widely. You know about the WikiLeaks, the Wikipedia, the guy who is behind WikiLeaks. I think he's here in jail now. I think Australia and the US are still in a legal battle to extradite him back to the United States, I think in Australia, to face charges of having leaked that information. But from what we saw from WikiLeaks, the kind of amounts of information and data that he put out was really relevant and vital for the public to be aware of how governments and how decisions that are critical and really critical to them do get to be formulated. Now we have that kind of blockage. So these are some of the issues that the Computer Misuse Act was intended to capture. But of course, alongside that, there are other pieces of provisions around hate speech, trying to protect societies against things like tribalism and, people exciting or, soliciting, those kind of mass kind of challenges. So those were really the crimes that were intended. But in our situation, we've ended up with this very funny piece of legislation, the Computer Misuse Act 2011, which seems to be, by and large, that the most outstanding, litigation or convictions that we've seen coming from that piece of legislation are designed around two particular sections, that is Section 24 and Section 25, which talk about protecting the person of the president, or offending the person of the president, or offending somebody, in those kind of spheres. And this is where we see lots of people running into trouble because they post something on Twitter or Facebook or on their public spaces, something that seems to not to go so well with those who wield authority. And then the next thing is you see people getting convicted. But do you see a situation where there is really an issue with trying to control the spread of malicious lies and malicious information? Is it something that we should be legislating about? As I was saying at the beginning, when I was growing up, and I don't know whether there are people who might still remember that, I grew up in an era where we had the things like Radio Katwe. I don't know whether you remember that, Radio Katwe.
Yes.
It was a spin of rumors, and it was funny in a way, because as much as some of the things that do get posted on Facebook and these social media places, as much as some of them they are really unbecoming and they are gross, my personal view is that I do not think that this is something that really a member of parliament should be concerning themselves with, because we do have enough laws that are capable of taking care of these crimes, the mega crimes, cyber crime, cyber harassment, hate speech. Those sort of things are catered for within our existing laws. I think it is a waste of time. It is a waste of public resources that we should be wasting so much time and ink discussing somebody trying to stop others from accessing or sharing information on social media. I think that's really the lowest I can think about.
Muzukulu, I don't know how much you engage in sharing information from Uganda, but me, I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do. First and foremost, I'm one of those people who I have a committee that is helping to save younger people from the Arab world. Now, Muzukulu, let me tell you this. If a young person posts somebody with a knife in the throat, Facebook tells you this doesn't meet community standards.
Our standards. Correct, yeah.
If young people are going to post a gunshot wound or somebody shot in Karamoja, Facebook says this doesn't meet community standards. Now, it's not the law that we need. We need changing people who are acting in the public sector. That you who has shot, because in America we have what we call neighborhood watch. So an American will come out and will see nothing. But a Ugandan kid comes out and sees violence, and they have these phones and they snap and they put it on their Facebook account. If they don't put a disclaimer, Facebook blocks them. But some of us have been telling Facebook that what you call not meeting community standards, those are things that come out in a particular country. They're coming out from Uganda. So we need to find a way that the world should understand that what comes out of Uganda is what it is, garbage in, garbage out. These are computers. You putting in garbage because that's what you have emitted for them. They take a picture of someone who is corrupt, somebody who has stolen money. And for sure, I am one person who says, yes, perhaps we need a law. Like yesterday I was sharing with Dr. Bitek. Dr. Bitek, I worked with Dr. Bitek during the Ebola epidemic. But look at the information the young people are sharing. The young people are saying Ebola is planted by government because of oil, because of a pipeline. That is dangerous. But how did we reach there? How did we reach there? Look at COVID-19. Much as we had a lockdown, if you followed what happened in COVID-19, government enriched itself. People running government enriched themselves. The young people now don't believe in any warning. Now, much as you are running for these laws, you are putting limits here and there. The first thing is look at the actors. The actors in the public sector. Are they ethical? Are they ethical?
Are they transparent? Can they be trusted?
Can they be trusted? And it's not, by the way, I don't know whether you follow the social media.
I do to some extent. I do, yeah.
Look at the presidential advisors. I don't know whether you have ever heard of a lady called Full Figure. Her language. Recently, we had another presidential advisor who stripped naked. But it's not them.
For the respect of those who are watching this program, I would request that some names are never mentioned here. They are not worth being mentioned on a platform.
The names are not me mentioning their names just stick out on social media. They dominate the social media with the trash. That I personally would say maybe I can click on and I'm like, what is this young man today saying? What's this lady telling us? I mean, the names are not hidden, but they are the speakers, the government actors. Now, for you to change what comes out of Uganda. For example, I'm just giving you a quick one. This morning, out of Kenya, we have seen Eliud Kipchoge. The whole world has seen somebody has broken the world record in the marathon. That has come out of Kenya. Bring out something that has come out of Uganda that is positive, that the world follows.
Should we say that Ugandans, we hate ourselves? That to the extent that we do not post anything positive about the country, and therefore we need laws like this in order to be able to protect the image of the country.
You and me know the Nile is the longest river in Africa. You and me know there's Mount Mount Rwenzori. We know that. You and me know that there's Lake Victoria, but what about the person who is posting from Kitalia? The person who is posting wrong information, the person who is sharing information with me is asking you in Canada, is asking me in the United States, don't talk about River Nile when we're being strangled. At the source of the Nile, we had Nalufenya. So you and me who is in America, you and me who is in the Americas, the young people are the ones sending us that information that we share. And sometimes to me, like I've told you, the information from Uganda is very difficult to share. Not that we hate ourselves, but it's what comes out. If somebody has been shot, that's what you say. Somebody has been shot, and young kids have picked. Several kids with cameras have picked. We don't wait for news. Every person is a moving journalist.
And those indeed are the issues that Mr. Nsereko's bill seems to want to capture: the sharing of information. I'm trying to find the amendment itself here so that I can be able to read it out and broadcast it.
From the medical perspective, that's what you wanted us to discuss. But sometimes I wanted us also to know that as medics, what affects people, we, from the oath that we swear, that you swear, you don't only look at a person as a diagnosis, as a disease, but look at a complete person, the whole person. This bill might not, as a medic, you're a psychiatrist. You said you're a psychiatrist?
I'm a mental health lawyer.
A mental health lawyer.
Yeah.
We are dealing with the distressed people. If you have 14 million people diagnosed with a functional mental illness, where are these things coming from? Some of these things are coming because you are not allowing people to share. You're not allowing people to speak. You have locked up people in fear. People walk in fear. People eat in fear. People sleep in fear. You can't live that way. Like me, who was welcomed here, the land of the courageous, the land of the free. That's the sentiment I was told here. Can you go to Uganda and tell Uganda to welcome to the land of the courageous, the land of the free? Can you say that?
In fact, we shall come back to the implications.
Yes.
In the medical world. But very quickly, there is this amendment, and the bill says the intended amendment will be known as Section 22A in the Principal Act, which states unauthorized sharing of information about children. That's one of them. Hate speech, unsolicited information. That's what you talked about, that if you're being sent information from another jurisdiction, you've not solicited for that information. So how does that become your issue? If suppose that we are here as we are right here, and I receive a piece of information on my WhatsApp, what crime have I committed by receiving that piece of information? Maybe I should exercise a bit of discretion and judgment to be able to judge whether this piece of information I'm receiving is credible or not, and therefore determine whether it is worth being reshared across another group of people. But I think this is really, really kind of concerning. Misleading or malicious information. A person shall not send, share, or transmit any misleading or malicious information about or relating to another person through a computer. A person shall not send, share, or transmit any misleading or malicious information about or relating to another person through a computer. Sharing and transmitting of malicious and false information. There seems to be, credibility in such a statement. I mean, if you think about, and again, I want to refer back again to the article that has been written by the one of my, most loved scribes, Timothy Kadiejita, today in the Monitor. He talks about this thing, and he makes reference that while the bill was going through Parliament and the debates were going on about how to disallow this and this and this and that, then there was the news about the possible demise of one of the senior generals in the army, who only ended up appearing a few days later, very alive and well. So Timothy Kajijira asks the question here that should we instead be truthful with our people? Because surely, as I was saying before, if somebody announces me dead, I wouldn't lose sleep over that. It might maybe cause concern, among relatives and family who may not immediately be able to verify whether what has been said is correct or not. And I doubt that that is even the case, because in this age where information travels so quick and so widely, James, if somebody said anything about you, I can bet you that in the next 5 minutes or so, that information will be on your phone and you'll be able to make those relevant phone calls and dispute whatever is being suggested. So the question is that should we really be worried about reckless people on social media who possibly are spreading false information and stuff like that? Should we really be going down the route of legislating against that? Because I think, just like what Timothy Kajijira says, I think sometimes just through just using your moral judgment, you can be able to determine that what has been shown to me, is it legit? Is it not legit? Is it something that I should be concerned about or something I shouldn't be concerned about? Because we have a real risk here. There are issues that need to be talked about. And those issues, for instance, how do you control the sharing of information which is already in the public domain? How do you stop such information from being shared, whether it's good or bad information, but as long as it's in the public domain? And how do you control it? The other question that I would possibly think about is that there is a problem, of course, of geographical extent. To what extent can the laws of a particular country go to be applicable in the laws of another country? The jurisdictional kind of issue. I mean, I'll give you an example. In the United States, a couple of years ago, the case originated from France. There was a group of students who took Yahoo at that time to court because Yahoo was displaying Nazi propaganda and information on its website, which was being shown, on websites in France. And the group of French students, they took issue with that, took Yahoo to court. A French judge made a judgment and said, this information has got to be taken down with immediate effect. Yahoo ran to a U.S. court, and the U.S. court decided that, the French judge did not have jurisdiction to be handling issues of such a kind, because in any case, the United States, Constitution, the First Amendment, allows, the engagement with not so clean language. The United States, in the United States is free. You are okay. The law allows you to to engage in that kind of speech. What is it exactly called? I'll find what the exact words are on that. But the concept is that the United States, takes its freedom of speech and expression, the freedom of conscience. If somebody is conscious to be able to be who you are, they take it very seriously to the extent that it is protected in their national constitution. As much as what you want to hear is, this is how the likes of Donald Trump have been able to survive. However much their politics is so dangerous and so toxic and so polarizing, but they have been able to maintain ground in the United States because the United States laws and the Constitution via Amendment 1, the First Amendment, allows people to have their freedom of speech and freedom of expression, despite the fact that what is being spilled out might be uncomfortable for you, the recipient. So in that kind of context, where do we stand? Where does that leave us?
I was interested in asking a question, maybe answering you with a question. What is hate speech? Especially for Uganda, what is hate speech? Just let's look at Uganda. I don't want us to discuss this as a mystery. Yeah. What is hate speech? I'm going to tell you this point blank. I come from Eastern Uganda. And I told you Busia is where I come from.
Mm-hmm.
Now, each time we are talking about gold, each time we are talking about our cement, each time we are talking about our fish, each time we are talking about our iron sheets or iron ore, we say, if you want to put a disclaimer, we say Abanyankole. And then if we don't use that, we say Abanyarwanda Batubba. And I don't know, is that hate speech or I'm speaking the truth? Because we are talking about resources being stolen,
Mm.
and the people who are stealing are not from Tororo. We are talking about Uganda cement industry where my father, somebody's father worked. And nowadays, somebody's father or people from Tororo don't work with Uganda cement industry. And people in Tororo strongly say, either if they don't use, if they just want to wrap you up, they say Westerners. So who is from the West? I mean, and I have said, and I'm emphasizing this, Muzukuru, that we need to work on those who are acting in the public sector. The language, the hate, the false speech is coming from that. We are having people who are fighting injustice using their mouths. There's somebody who is using a gun, but there's somebody who is just using a mouth. They're equally, and you know, if the Bible is true,
Mm-hmm.
the tongue is compared to an edged sword.
It is,
What does
yeah.
this what does the sword do? The sword is used for cutting. So for you are using a gun, and the person will go down and say Banabasajja Batumalao, and they start talking about you. Now, another thing you have mentioned that has interested me. The death announcement. I call them I gave it a medical word, the death syndrome in Uganda.
Mm-hmm.
If every day you hear information that 300 girls are living through Entebbe to the Middle East, and you're in charge of wealth creation, if every day they are telling you, if in a week 1,000 Ugandans have left for the Middle East, and you're in charge of governance, and you've done nothing, and people declare you dead, and people declare you dead because a living person acts. A man with wealth creation is not acting. We're only seeing distress from Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm.
So when they say you are dead, it's not about showing up. It's not about showing up. It's about acting. Come out and stop the hemorrhage that we are seeing. I mean, let's face this point blank as Ugandans, that what you call hate speech perhaps can be improved, not by a law, but an actor.
By engagement, I think the critical issue here is that there is a group of people, young and old, east and south and north, or wherever you want, however somebody wants to characterize that, but there is a section of Ugandans who feel that they have been left behind, that for them, the concept of this fundamental change, which was meant to bring about economic transformation and economic liberation, the enjoyment of our rights, civil liberties and rights and freedoms and everything, has been such a bad letdown. And therefore there is a section of Ugandans who genuinely they feel disgruntled and they are left out. And they don't see a recourse. They don't see how else they can be able to have a say in the management of the affairs of the country. You know, I think, as they say, and this thing is always talks about, maybe lightly or maybe sometimes without being given the serious attention that it deserves, that power belongs to the people. But if you look at our example, how seriously can you sit down and ask yourself a question like that, whether actually power belongs to the people in our own situations? I
Right
wanted to
now,
answer. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Muzuku, let me mention this very fast, because we know the wave that came. We are
Mm,
talking about the first. I think I would call them. There were 4 first active citizens, they were young people, and then the people power, and then NUP. And then, first they are classified hooligans. Which country produces hooligans? Which country produces hooligans? These are young people whom we have failed to mentor. These are young people. Yes, because that's the way. Let's not shy away from them, because these are the people. The young people are about to eat us all, whether we want it or not. And for us, it's not the laws. It's for us to think, to rethink that what do we need to do to create employment. What do we need to do? I'm just going to give you something very. I was debating. I was pushing this to the member of parliament in Tororo, and I'm like, you are talking about a bill on alcohol, but let's do it this way. I'm going to give you an example that is practical because I'm a sportsman. In Uganda, we all support Arsenal. We all support either Man U. We support Chelsea. They are playing in the stadiums. For us, we are playing in bars. So for you to think of a bill, you should create something that is going to people play to transfer football from bars to the stadiums. Because that's where we learn alcohol from right now. Everybody goes to the bar to cheer his team. Arsenal, the Britons, and that is engaging young people. If you don't know, that those people who are playing football in Europe, those are young people. And it costs that. You are in Canada, I'm in America. Just look at what America calls a cross-country season. If not a cross-country season, look at what they call American football. And see how much the whole country is engaged. How much is Uganda engaging this youthful energy? The only space that we have created, that's we call them public space. The only space is politics. And they are not good to play there. They will come and abuse you there. They will come and fight you there, and they are ready to throw stones at you in the near future. So the best you can do is to create public spaces for them. Let's be practical here.
I think I'm very disappointed with Muhammad Nsereko being a young MP, only born in 1981. I'm even older than him, So I should expect him, to know. I should expect his heart to be on the ground, to be able to understand, how these young people, the young generation, how they are feeling, the sorts of issues that they are struggling with, the sorts of things that they are going through, as their daily experiences. I mean, looking at the statistics here, and I've been looking at them, they are saying that almost about more than half of the world now is, is connected to some social media of some sort or another. 4.7 billion users on social media, and that includes 227 million new users every 12 months. The average time that is spent on the internet, on social media, by an average person a week is 2.5 hours. If you can do the simple maths there, I don't know what Uganda's situation would be. I think the Uganda Communications Commission produces that kind of information, telling us how many people are connected or how many people have got a mobile phone, and so on and so forth. So I think it will be very important for us to cross-check against that information and exactly be able to, put that into the economics of it, bring the economics, of this thing.
And politics has all this interesting language, especially when you come, for example, on Uganda, we have the East African community. We are looking at the larger market. What are you putting on? What are you putting in that market? You have just given us those good statistics. That's the market, but what are you putting in that market? If your country only puts misery, if your country only puts destitutes, I don't know whether you listen to these young people from the Arab world posting their videos, crying and starving and fighting and being raped and dropping from high buildings.
I follow them. I see.
That is what we are. So do we appreciate that there's a huge market? Is there something from Uganda that we want to market to this big market? Is it the Ugandan youth?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Interesting, very interesting conversation. Very, very interesting conversation here.
I,
I want to say, I want to say, I, unfortunately, I cannot find that claim. I wanted to put it,
don't put a
like
disclaimer.
a
Don't put a
nice claim.
disclaimer. This one we are just talking about, because if we put disclaimers, then we are fearing.
No, 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 no. Yeah, I tell you what. I'm very comfortable and confident about the conversation we are having here. The
Yes.
point and purpose of having this conversation is to facilitate public engagement, to facilitate public conversation, to facilitate that kind of open and transparent way of doing things. I am really on one of those people who are on the other side who are very uncomfortable with people in public office wanting to protect those public spaces for themselves, and more so, hiding behind the law, to be able to do one thing for themselves and one thing for another. Because clearly, Nsereko should know that this law will never affect him, but this law will affect his constituents, the people in his constituency, they will be affected by this. And he can clearly see the enthusiasm by which the government has taken up, this law, because they can see an opportune advantage here. They can see an opportunity to do things that they have not been able to do because the law has not permitted them to do things like that. I mean,
Muzukuru,
without a shame. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Muzukuru, Wamitala, let me give you this perspective. You see my phone here? My
Yeah.
phone here? When I clock in the hospital, I normally clock in at 4:30 a.m. in the morning. It becomes a property of the hospital. Once I enter hospital, the hospital has 4,000 desktops, but the moment I enter hospital, this phone is hooked on the hospital system, and
Network.
it becomes the property of the hospital. And this is a fact, and this is the truth. In the hospital, I can read New Vision on this phone. In the hospital, I can read the Daily Monitor on this phone. In the hospital, I cannot access the Red Paper on this phone. And I'm like, how do they get it? That is technology. You sort it out. It's a misuse already sorted out. That perhaps if I went to hospital, there's the IT system.
But even
Yes.
but even on a more on a more kind of lower practical, practical level, let's look at it this way, because we know that WhatsApp is encrypted, which means that you cannot be able to see what I see unless I've given it to you. So suppose somebody is accused of sharing malicious, unsolicited information about somebody, and that stuff is on your WhatsApp. How are they going to access that information? How are they going to prove that in court that this is actually what was said? You know, because the only thing I can think about is that the usual methods of extracting information from people will be applied, and therefore we won't be in any better situation. And what are the usual methods I'm talking about? We've seen lots of you know people going to court and challenging the evidences that have been produced as a basis, for the charges against them in court, only for the judges to throw those charges out because the evidence has been obtained using unlawful means, the unlawful means of torture.
Did you,
So
did you tell me you're a lawyer? Let me put this one to you now. Did you tell me you're a lawyer?
I am indeed.
Okay. Now I'm discussing in Nsereko, a small one. Here is a man who has a case against him for rigging elections. Do you think he's passing that bill in the right mind? That's you. I mean, this is one of those are some of the. If you're talking about the United States, they would consider that perhaps it's vengeance.
What is his motivation?
What is the motivation? A man who has a court case against him for rigging elections. So is he fighting back? What is
Just,
he
just,
doing?
just before we came on air, I took some time to try to read about Mr. Muhammad Nsereko, to read about his record as an MP. I am sad to say that I have not found anything significant. Maybe, of course, maybe there is information that is not publicly available. What is his track record? There is a couple of things. I mean, he's down on record as being in the initial stages, as
And
being opposed. In initial stages, in the initial stages of his career as a politician, he was very opposed to excesses in government. He was opposed to legislation removing age limit from the constitution and so on and so forth. At one time, he was thrown out of parliament because he was considered to be a rebel MP. He didn't toe the agenda of the ruling party. And I think recently he positions himself much more as an independent, but very much aligned to the movement system. I think that's his politics. But in terms of his own personal record as a legislator, I have not found anything yet, and I stand to be corrected on that. As I said, I don't pronounce myself to be the Mr. Know Me All, but because Mr. Nsereko has brought to us a piece of legislation that has got huge ramifications and possibly huge consequences for quite a lot of people, I think it's very important that the public should get to examine him a little bit more to understand, what is his motivation, what sits behind him. As an MP, as a lawyer who should be, very conscious of defending the rights of the marginalized, is this piece of legislation, does it serve any good effect? I always ask rhetoric questions because I don't have the answers myself.
and Muzukulu, are you a Christian?
I am a Christian, sir.
Do we have time? Do we have some time, like
We
2 or 5 minutes?
we still have a lot of time, James. Go ahead. I don't want to end it while it's still interesting.
I want us to be practical.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you can open the book of Titus. I don't know whether you can open the book of Titus.
I don't have the Bible right on me here.
No, the Bible is online.
I can go. I can go to the one online, but again, I'll be letting myself vulnerable to the prospect of misinformation.
No. I'm neither priest. I'm neither pastor. I'm neither. But don't look at leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership. A few statements from the book of Titus. Who among us you should be a leader? A man who is well spoken of. A man whose children are well spoken of. A man who does not have excesses of alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
A man of one wife. That is Titus. I'm not quoting that. Now, after Nsereko bill, after Nsereko law, if you have been following his legislation, but follow his social life and see what people are talking about. I mean, this is now naked up, and these are the things that he's fighting. The way people talk. Here's a visit to America 2 weeks ago, and then to Saudi Arabia. You don't want to associate with an MP, but I was quoting for you the book of Titus. That go and look at the book of Titus as Paul was giving instructions to those who should serve in public. We have been talking about the public sector. There should be people who are well spoken of. If you know you are involved in killing people, you will not be well spoken of. If you know you are involved in stealing global funds, you will never be spoken of properly. If you stole COVID funds, you will never be spoken of well.
And here we are talking in generalities. We are not specifically referring to individuals, but we are talking about the general qualities of leadership.
These are the stories that have made the public sector in Uganda. Suffice to say, right now we have this, and it's public, and I don't know, I don't know how much you're limiting me on the disclaimer. We have in Parliament.
No, feel free.
We have in Parliament, and it has just been there, public knowledge. The Speaker of Parliament, the marriage is challenged.
I've been reading about that today in the
Is
papers.
that
Yeah.
is that
Mm.
somebody well spoken of in a public sector?
It's a rhetoric question.
Is that person worth leadership in the public sector? Yes, the public sector has players, and right now we are naked. There's nothing. I mean, that's what I'm saying. That like when I told my friends, let's go and pick computers, and like
Mm.
they will
But
monitor.
you see, then there is good reason. There is good reason for the public to be fearful. That the reason, and I said it at the beginning of this show, that this law is not based in good faith. The
Yes,
motives behind this law, they are very questionable. It explains the rush. It explains the lack of consultation, proper consultation. From as far as I understand, that various stakeholders had an objection. Um, over the law being passed in its current form, but somehow Parliament saw it fit uh, to pass a vote of confidence in that piece of legislation, and they have passed it, and we are just awaiting for the president to be able to
that
assent to it. And
that
I think for me, where we are, I think it's going to become law. It's just a matter of time. I think the president is studying it. I cannot see any evidence to the contrary that suggests that the president will not be signing that piece of legislation. It's a piece of cake for him. So we are into the hot soup here, aren't we?
and and let's not also forget tell the public, to tell the listeners, to tell younger people that the capacity to fight is there. The capacity to fight is there. The only issue is we are looking for better actors in managing our country, the affairs of our country. Today,
Absolutely.
I was telling people that how come people are. I mean, I don't like this issue where everybody is assigning. Let me mention this name, Chagulanyi, that was responsible for stopping the oil pipeline. But I'm like, but I remember signing the petition. And I signed the petition. I signed the petition because I come from a mineral rich region, and unless I am trying to help people that this time let's not make a mistake because we are deceived. There's no way you
There,
can tell
there,
me
there
that
is
yes,
there is a lot of scapegoating here, and I think
yes,
we've lightly touched on it, but I think the simple logic is here. If there is a section of people who feel that they have been left out, you know, unfairly left out, that for them opportunities that do not exist, I think it's difficult to talk about patriotism. It's very difficult to talk about patriotism. When I mean, look, where we see what's happening in Russia today. I would want to think that the Russian people are very patriotic. The young Russian people are very patriotic. I've got a couple of Russian friends, colleagues that we work with, and they are very. They, in fact, I don't even want to call it patriotism, but they are very nationalistic about the sorts of values and things that they believe in as a nation. Now, today, or a couple of days ago, the president of Russia signed the decree requiring all young people to be all. And I think he's kind of going into some kind of recruitment exercise. And the reports that are coming out presently is that young Russians, they are on the border trying to escape because they are saying, we don't want to fight this war. It's not our war. So, in the same analysis, some of the things that are being done in the name of Ugandans, they are not actually in good faith. And as long as the government or the public, those who are responsible for taking decisions like that, are not in position to come and face up to the public and persuade them and convince them that this is being done in the national interest, that we are raking up debt, and it's in the national interest to rake up debt because your children, my children, and their grandchildren stand to benefit from these sorts of measures, there's going to be a problem. And that problem cannot be legislated away. That problem cannot be locked away in jail. You know, but
and
Lucky Dube sang and said that they are building so many jails, and they will continue to build them. But unless you address the bottom issues, the silent issues, unless you address them and you address them meaningfully, so that the public, those who are left out, so that they can be able to see that something is doing something about my situation, we shall legislate, we shall lock up people, the problems won't go away.
This is the state of the nation. Ibifa Mubanga. We are deliberate, we are reasonable, we are uncensored. The state of the nation with Henry Salah.
Welcome back. That was a very quick one, well intended and well timed. It's 20 minutes past 6 p.m. here in the UK. What time is it at your place, James, right now?
20 minutes past midday.
20 minutes past midday. Right.
Yeah.
I think I shall be doing the wrap up very quickly. I don't think we're going to go beyond this. It's been a lovely discussion. In about 10 minutes or so, what's your take of the day?
Like I said, it's not about the law. It's about actors in the public space. It will be foolhardy for us to think it is the computer. We started off with the Public Order Management Bill. And we ended up putting a shadow on Facebook. Now we're on the computer misuse. And for me, I'm saying before you can think about computer misuse, think about computer use. First, create computer use before you can think about computer misuse. And I've just given you an example. This is not rocket science. That the state where I am, given free laptops, in partnership with the Google, and there are so many courses online, and the state free. And the state is encouraging everyone do something, study. And that's not computer misuse, that's the computer use. And then there are mentors. If I went to do maybe something like on primary health care, there's somebody already there who will be guiding me through. And that's the state monitoring you. It's not bad. And Henry, Muzukulu, can I even say that some of us who are living in these countries, children are protected, women are protected, because you can survive in America only if you know how to protect children. Absolutely. You can survive in America only if you know how to handle women. Are you sure you want to protect Ugandan children? The American child will not see violence. The Ugandan child is seeing raw violence. So what is this protection that Nsereko is talking about? It's not about sharing the image of the child. It's about protecting the child from harmful information.
Absolutely.
The children who are watching parents being slain.
On national television. Yeah.
On national television. The children who are seeing images coming from Karamoja of starving people. Those images are traumatic. And Ugandans need space. Ugandans need space. Space allows you to think. Space allows innovation.
Space allows you to vent.
Space allows you to vent.
And when you vent, you release anger. You don't need to be angry against anybody, because
and
you have
the anger that we are seeing in Uganda is real. It's real. There are people who are vigilant. There are people who want answers to their relatives who are lost. There are people who are angry, and now the whole issue is that how do we manage all this? And that's why I'm saying we need better public actors. And this is going to take all of us, even the younger people who are now thinking, running to the Arab world where we are trying to save them is not a solution. It's staying at home and then engaging and occupying space. You must occupy space. Create that space and occupy it. Otherwise, we are still going to see more of what you are thinking of as misuse. I said we are at war. So we need a reconciliation. We need to stop the war.
We need to stop the war. And in order to stop the war, we need to talk. We need to be talking to each other. You
Yes.
know, we can talk to each other, we can agree to disagree on a number of things, but we don't need to act in a very draconian and possibly undemocratic manner. It's just not for us. I think it's taking us back, to all the places that we wanted to escape away from. I think for me, it's really a question of the legitimacy of the law and how does the law attain that legitimacy. You know, it's got to be acceptable, to the people to whom that law is being made for, or at least even if it's not wholly accepted, but at least there's got to be some obvious, outmaneuvered kind of obvious exercise that shows that there's been proper public engagement so that the people understand why these things are necessary. I think that is pretty lacking in our current situation. Um, I saw the president was talking on the event marking the 50th anniversary since the disappearance of the late Ben Chiwanuka, who was the Chief Justice of the time. And I think the president said something that was very, very interesting that needs to be, quite thought about very carefully, where he admonished the judiciary in the presence of the Chief Justice, the Attorney General, and all the other people, and said to them in open language that, uh, if politicians feel that the judiciary or the judges have made laws that are not popular, with the government, then politicians should be able to overrule judiciary over things like that. I think that's very dangerous. It's very, very dangerous because what that means is that it won't be so long that a Supreme Court judge or a High Court judge will make a key decision on something, and that key decision will be undone by a resident district commissioner, because the president seems to be suggesting that a resident district commissioner's, power and mandate should exceed the power and mandate of a judicial officer.
I
So I
saw
think
I saw on the Uganda Law Society, I think it is one of their walls. The lawyers were saying that some of them have been holding the opinion that the people who killed Benny Kwanuka are still living.
and on that note, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. James, it's been a pleasure. Please stay behind the scene. I'll be back to you in a minute. Stay behind the scene. I shall be back with you very quickly as we continue, through this discussion. All right? I shall be back.
Thank you.
All right. Okay.